Welcome to The Lock Shop with Nielson and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
Oh, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to The Lock Shop. Huss is going to be here around, I'll be here in a couple of minutes. He was doing a pre-tape. He'll be here in a couple of minutes. That's when he will join us. We've got Two Guys in Goalie coming up at noon. That'll be followed by EST afternoons today. And, of course, the Reed Wilkins show from 3 to 6 for the birthday boy, Reed Wilkins. And then pregame coverage is going, the GCL Diesel pregame show tonight at 7 o'clock right here and only here on EST. Rod Zawacki says Ovi goal because El Presidente is looking for a guaranteed thing. I was looking at that myself, actually, as you said it. Ovechkin goal tonight, that would bring him within 4. Gets Boston tonight. We'll take a look at the number on that one. Let's see here. What do we got for an OV goal tonight? Hustle and I'll break down all the games. It's a busy slate. We got an EST parlay that's already up as well. Player goals. OV plus 105 tonight to score. You know what? I'm probably gonna hop in on that while we're here. Let's get on Ovi to score tonight. Boom, done, just like that. The EST parlay is up as well, and it was plus 355 this morning. Still sitting at plus 355. This is for the Oilers and the Golden Knights tonight. Jets have a huge game tonight against the Kings as well. That's big for Edmonton too. So all eyes will be on that one. Draisaitl 2 points. Hyman and Bouchard each with a point. Plus 355. So that is even without the Oilers picking up a dub. You can get that one over in the exclusives, and I just hopped in and rode on that one as well. I do like it. If you're watching over on YouTube today, hammer the thumbs up for us. That would be great. And of course, you can text us anytime, 780-218-9999. There's Huss from WST sitting around prepping another big Winnipeg Sports Talk program coming up here at the top of the hour as well. Let's bring in Huss this morning. Huss, what's going on, my man? How you doing?
I'm doing great. Busy morning. Just finished chopping it up with our buddy Dennis Bernstein out in LA.
How's Bernstein doing? Always great when the Kings are playing your team, right? Get to catch up with Bernstein.
Dude, he's one of our favorites. I'm jealous of him too. He's co-hosting on Sirius XM NHL radio today with Steve Cooley.
With Cooley.
The greatest energy of one human being. I was going to say in hockey, but it might be of entertainment. It might be on Earth.
Big time energy guy, Cooley. Big time energy guy.
He's the best.
I used to love, what was his show with Ludzik? And they would do it on the Score. It was brilliant. It was my favorite hockey program for a while. It was like on the fly. It was like an NHL sort of on the fly thing, or what did they call it? Anyway,
something,
it was an awesome show.
Rink surfing, or
yeah, maybe was that them?
Court surfing was basketball.
Court surfing was basketball. Might have been ice surfing, rink surfing. Was that those guys? Yeah, and then he did That's Hockey Tonight too, right? Didn't he have the second That's Hockey show? His energy levels were always. I don't know him much at all, like personally, but his energy levels were always like infectious. Just when you were watching what he was doing, like.
You know, we'll often, for getting guys like that on our show, we'll have to record earlier on in the day. And I mean, there's a small group of individuals that I am personally more excited for the off-air conversations before we record than what we actually put on the show. Cooley's at the top of that list.
Yeah.
I mean, he is a funny guy. But man, when he ramps it up, I mean, there's absolutely there's nobody that can compete with the voltage that's coming out of that dude. So anyways, if you're ripping around and checking out any Sirius XM today, DB might be on with Cooley. And I'm sure they'll be talking about this Jets game tonight because it is It is a big one. They're all big right now as the Jets look to. It's so funny. I mean, what are they? 3 points clear of Washington right now for the President's Trophy, but don't feel safe at all in their own division or in the Western Conference because Dallas just is not losing games. 6 in a row after their sweep in Seattle last night. They've got an absolute cupcake schedule the rest of the way. So with Winnipeg going into LA, into Vegas, into Utah, then with St. Louis coming to Winnipeg and at Dallas the next game. I mean, these 5 next games against playoff teams, I think, are going to be a huge determining factor as to whether the Jets are able to lock down first, play the second wild card team, or, I mean, potentially get passed by Dallas and then have to play the Avalanche in the first round. I mean, listen, if you're going to go far in the playoffs, I get it. You're probably going to have to beat all those teams. But, I mean, let's face it. I mean, with all due respect, even to St. Louis, although I think Minnesota is going to probably be the 8th seed, to have Dallas and Colorado play each other in the first round, beat the hell out of each other for 2 weeks, and get the 8th team. I mean, the stakes are high for Winnipeg if they want to move past the first round and give themselves the best chance to move out of the division. So they know what the task is. It doesn't make it easy, though. They're going in to play the Los Angeles Kings, who they have not beaten this year. And the Kings are a league best 27-4-4 at home. I know that's a topic you guys have talked about because there's a chance that the Oilers, depending on how things shake out, could be the road team. And we'll have to find a way to win in LA when no one has done that really this year if they're playing in a best-of-7 first-round series.
780-218-9999. Busy night in the NHL. We'll definitely get to that. The nasty chat is already moving. Spency 5 cents. He says Kucherov anytime goal plus 141. He has scored in 4 straight games and has scored in 6 of his last 7 versus the Islanders. So we've got that going there as well. Rod Z over in the chat says Dusty, Lakers versus OKC West Finals loading. Yeah, I could see that. OKC is such a juggernaut, though. Like, regardless of if it's a red hot Golden State team or a really good Lakers team or the Nuggets, whoever gets OKC in that West Final is going to be in tough. I saw something the other day, and big win for the Lakers last night against Houston. Kind of a low-scoring affair between the two clubs. Houston does defend well, and the Lakers, when they're on, can defend well, and they ended up winning a tight one last night. But I saw OKC has the best point differential in like the history of the game. And the other 7 teams right behind them all won the title. Like the number 2 team point differential ever won the title. The one after that won the title. The one after that won the title. You have to get down to number 9 on the list. And number 9 on the list that didn't win the title was the Golden State team that won 72 games, and the Cavs came back and upset them in the NBA final. Like, when you have a point differential as dominant as OKC does, you win titles. I mean, it's as simple as that. So they're going to be a tough out. I don't know which one of these other teams in the West has the best shot at it, but Huss, did you just look at their point differential?
Well, I'm just looking at their games. I mean, I know their point differential is plus 30. Like, they're averaging 13 1/3 points more than their opponents in every game this season. So do the math. What I was looking for, they're 10-0 in their last 10, and they've won 17 of their last 18 games. And I mean, listen, there are some games that, you say, oh, who did they beat? But I mean, they beat the Nuggets, they beat the Celtics, they beat the Bucks.
They beat everybody. Like,
the Grizzlies. Yeah. I mean, it's nuts. I was reading an article yesterday. I can't remember where it was, but it was talking about the end of this NBA regular season. And we have not been in a situation in a long time where so little is really determined right now with this many games left in the season. I mean, like the NBA, as much as I hate it, the league of load management, getting ready for the playoffs. This would be a time where guys would be shut down. You'd be making decisions based on playoffs. There's not a lot of teams that are really able to do that. I mean, there's a couple things that are basically assured. The Cavs are going to be the 1 seed in the East.
Yep.
The Celtics are going to be the 2 seed in the East. Oklahoma City will be the 1 seed in the West. Other than that, everything is up for grabs. I mean, just looking at the West, Houston's got 49 wins. They're in second. The Nuggets are 47 wins. They're in third. Lakers, 46 wins in fourth. Memphis, 44 in fifth. And then Golden State, Minnesota, and the Clippers all have 43 wins. Now,
and all of those teams have been red hot. They're 7-3, 7-3, and 8-2 in their last 10. Like, they're all playing very well.
Yeah, the one team that isn't is the Grizzlies, and they just fired their coach.
Yeah.
They've lost 3 in a row. They're 3-7 and on the verge of potentially falling into a play-in spot. So let me ask you, Laker guy, I mean, is it, like, where's ideal? Like, is it just finished as high as possible? Is there a matchup for that team that works out the best? Is there a team they want to avoid? Because as I said, like, the Lakers could finish second. They could finish sixth, or potentially, I guess, even seventh if they hit the skids in the final few games of the year.
I mean, it's tough because as a Lakers fan, I'd let it settle in right where it's at right now, because you get the Nuggets versus the Warriors in the first round. That is a very, very, very good team going out one way or the other. And to be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure who would win that series. Jokic is a freak, but the Warriors have been really good since they got Jimmy Butler. I'd probably take Denver, but I think it'd be close. And then the Lakers would take care of it. Like, you're going to have to go through OKC one way or the other. And I mean, I think coming off of a series against the Grizzlies to go up against OKC might be better than going through the Grizzlies or going through the Nuggets or Warriors and then having to beat the Rockets and then go get OKC. You know what I mean? Like, so I think it's probably best where it's at right now. If you're going to beat OKC, it's going to have to happen in the second or the third round. You're going to have to get it done one way or the other. You might as well have maybe a little bit more juice coming out of a series against Memphis. But I'm not sure anybody takes down OKC. I mean, they're a 63-win team right now. It's pretty impressive.
When did the Rockets get good?
To be honest with you, watching them so they had a great start to the year. And then they did sort of tail off a bit because for a while there, the Lakers were like in second and the Nuggets were they are, and the Rockets had kind of slipped down to, fourth or fifth. And then they heated back up again. And I watched that entire game from start to finish last night. And I've watched the Rockets a little bit. I think I watched them against Golden State. I'm not sure why they're as good as they are, to be honest. You know what I mean? Like, nothing against Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks, who they've kind of brought in, and those guys are making a positive impact. They're a deep team. I'll say this. They're a deep team. Their leading scorer last night, they didn't even have on the field, on the court for some reason, over the final 3 minutes or so. That didn't make a lot of sense to me. But they're a deep team that also defends really well. But I don't know if when you come playoff time and the Nuggets are giving the ball to Jokic and Jamal Murray, and the Lakers are giving the ball to Luka and LeBron, and the Warriors can give it to Steph or Jimmy. Like, I don't know if Houston, obviously OKC, we know what they'll do. But I don't know if Houston, like, I think that's what ends up being their downfall come playoff time, I guess. They're having a nice regular season.
I guess I sort of slept on them last year. They got to 500.
Yeah.
Finished third in their division. But I think I was still mired in. Because, I mean, if you go back to 17-18, I mean, they were 65-17, 53-29. And then within 2 years, they won 17 games, 20 games, and 22 games. I mean, they were terrible. And now, without that superstar, as you mentioned, they sort of have very quietly turned into a really competitive team that is going to have home court in all likelihood in the first round of the playoffs. And, just don't have a bunch of those names that, I think that we've thought before. But yeah, to me, it's OKC versus the field in the West. Yeah.
And the odds right now, OKC in the West is minus 152 to come out of the West. The Nuggets are 6-1. The Warriors are 7-1. The Lakers are plus 750. And then it falls off a little bit to a little bit after there. So, I mean, the odds makers kind of see it the same way. I mean, to be a conference favorite that heavily come playoff time when the West, I mean, these other teams are not slouches. Like, this is a really good conference. And OKC is just that farther separated from them, which is very impressive. But it's a great race right now. Like, like every night, that Western Conference playoff race in the NBA has my attention. It's been really good.
Well, yeah, and listen, the East is similar, maybe not quite as crazy. Like we can pencil in 1 for the Cavs, 2 for the Celtics, but the Knicks could get caught by the Pacers. The Pistons and the Bucks, could obviously switch spots. And these teams, it kind of looks like we know the play-in teams. It's going to be Hawks, Magic, Heat, Bulls. Just depending on who's got the home court and where they end up finishing. And of course the Raptors, just where you don't want to be. At the top of the teams that are missing. Like
the worst possible spot.
It is the worst possible spot. Everyone else is tanking. I guess the Wizards or the Wizards and the Jazz battling it out for Cooper Flag. 16 wins on the season.
Doing everything they can. Not a bad strategy. Guy's a stud.
While we're at this, just on this, we don't talk a ton of NBA, but we are getting into that season where we're getting closer to the playoffs. Let's head over to Coolbet and check out what we got cooking for the future. So you just mentioned OKC's -152 to win the West. Huge drop off. And then, like, if you think that someone can beat OKC to win the West, there's some great numbers out here. I mean, second is the Nuggets at 6-1. The Warriors are 7-1. The Lakers are plus 750. And then another big drop. T-Wolves at 16-1. It's been sort of underwhelming this year after beating Denver last year. And I think people really expected that next jump. And then you got Clippers at 20, Memphis at 33, Houston at 33. It's crazy. Houston's getting the Winnipeg Jets treatment, having this great season.
Yeah.
And no one even, okay. That's nice,
33-1. That's worse than Jets treatment. They're second. They're second in the conference. And what are they? The 8th best odds? Yeah. The 8th best odds to come out of the West. But that kind of goes back around to what I said. And good regular season team, great defense, but you got to have a little star power, I think, come playoff time. And like Jalen Green, who was the guy who they didn't even have out on the floor late last night, He's one of their best players. He averages 21.5 points per game, but he's only 23. Like, Houston is going to get better, and they're already, like, they're putting some pieces in place. But yeah, that is the most disrespectful futures number I've ever seen on a second place team.
It's nuts. I mean, they're behind teams that are in the play-in right now. And then there's the Mavs. You like the Mavs at 500-1 to win the West?
I do not. I do not. They should have kept Luka, I guess.
East numbers, Boston's a similar favorite. So I guess the Cavs are the ones that are getting the Jets treatment.
Yeah, but not 33-1 Jets treatment. But yeah, they're 60-15, and they're number 2 in the East on the odds. Like,
yeah, plus 165. You would just think that, after the season they had, they might be at least a favorite.
But Bob, Boston's the defending champs and are only four games back. I kind of see that. No, I'm with you. To me, it should be a pick 'em kind of thing. So maybe a little disrespect to the Cavs, but
yeah, I mean, if you think it's not going to be one of those two teams, again, a huge drop off. I mean, Knicks 10-1, and then the Bucks are 30-1, Pacers 33, Pistons 70, and then a bunch of teams at 250. But the championship is interesting. It gets a little more even at this point. So OKC is the favorite at plus 165. Boston's 2-1. Cleveland is 5-1. So, for the title, they are giving them some respect. Yeah. And I get it. All those other two teams are ahead of them. And then you got Denver at 14, Golden State 16, Lakers at 18. As much as I'm not a Laker guy, that would be, if LeBron could win a championship at this age doing this, it would be all time.
Well, and Luke has been close. They're good, man. Austin Reeves, the Lakers are a good team. I think they can beat anybody in the West with the exception of maybe OKC. Like, I take them against the Nuggets. I take them against the Warriors, Houston, Memphis. but OKC is going to be a big hurdle to overcome. But I think like at 18-1, if you think they can beat OKC, then I mean it's not a bad number. I mean you got two of the best ever going at it on one team. I mean
they're going to get every call in close moments. I mean this is like I'm not a big conspiracy guy or anything like that, but let's face it. What would be good for the NBA is LeBron in an NBA Finals. So
yeah, I mean it'll be a different hurdle though because nobody gets more calls in the league than SGA with OKC. So that would be like two worlds colliding where they're like the guy who gets all the calls versus the other guys. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, if it's the unstoppable force and the immovable object, when those go together, I think it's going in LeBron.
You know what? From a theory perspective, I can see what you're saying because let's just say the two options in the final would be LeBron versus the Cavs, which would be pretty insane, or Lakers Celtics, which the league would die for right now. So we'll see. But I mean, or SGA gets the line more than anybody.
Cleveland, Oklahoma City. You think Silver and the boys are licking their chops? I mean,
two amazing teams though. Like you could have two like 68 win teams meeting in a final.
I agree. Their TV ratings have been so bad. Like nobody's watching the NBA this year. Can you imagine what a Cleveland, Oklahoma City finals would be rating wise when they've already tanked? Like, and you know what? That's also, it's unfair though, because that would be a great final. Like Cleveland and OKC would be a phenomenal final, but you're right. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with them. I'm just saying a lot of people would miss a really good final if it was Cleveland OKC. Like, hey, speaking of ratings numbers and whatnot, you think Gary Bettman's a good negotiator?
It's on here. We got to get to it, man. Like $11 billion Canadian for the next 12 years. You know what? They kind of like when they did it last time, it kind of surprised a lot of people. Like all of a sudden it's like, boom, Sportsnet's got them. And I know from talking with some people who were involved in the negotiations at TSN, they were like, what? Like we were expecting like another, like, hey, we'll come back to you. Like here's,
you remember
like, they got it done. Like,
do you remember the circumstances for how that happened?
Was it not, there was an event going on, wasn't there? What was the
Grey Cup. And all of the TSN brass was in Regina. I believe is the 2013 Grey Cup. All the TSN brass was in Regina. And Keith Pelly, who has bounced around a little bit and now has made his way back to Canada, he rolled in to the NHL office, from what I've heard, and sat down and said, here's the offer. $5.2 billion, 12-year deal, exclusive. But you've got 30 minutes or whatever to say yes. And there's no calling the competitor and giving them an opportunity to match. And I guess Gary made a couple calls and said, all right, this is something that we've got to be done. Yeah, like from my understanding, the TSN people, all the big wigs were in Regina. Obviously, the CFL and the Grey Cup game is a huge, huge event for TSN. And they stealthily went in when those guys were out of town and just went in and got that deal done. It blindsided everyone. I will never forget that. You know, working at TSN at the time. Yeah. Talking with the guy that was running our station at the time outside of the airport, waiting for our flight. And I'd love when Pelly and some of the individuals are done, to do either a 30 for 30 on
the
it.
Stories about this, yeah.
Oh my God, But that's being said, it looked like a terrible deal for the last.
And it kind of was. I mean, it cost them a lot. Like they had to make cut. Like it was. That's why. Well, I was so caught off guard by yesterday as well.
Did they have to? Check Rogers' stock price.
Yeah.
And check out what they're doing. I mean, that's
they tried to use it to justify cuts. I'll say that. I mean,
But that's the funny thing. They've cut so much. It's like they don't care about their product. I mean, like, I have no skin in the game. I'm a fan. I watch games on TSN. I'll watch games on Sportsnet. If we're lucky, we'll get one of the American broadcasts because they put so much more resources into these games than we get. But I mean, to see what's happened to those Sportsnet broadcasts, I guess my hope is, and I mean, we've seen, I mean, like the common refrain on X is, "Oh my God, are you kidding me?" Like,
there was a lot of that reaction.
We thought we were at the end of the road. And I hope that they do a complete overhaul of this. I mean, if they're invested to this much, I mean, let's improve a number of areas. I don't want to take shots at any one particular person on it or anything like that, but it has been like, it's been such a challenge. And that's why my jaw was on the floor when I saw that yesterday, Dusty, with the amount of money. And I know Jonah from YYC Sports Media, who does a great job covering all this stuff. He, what was the quote? I'll pull this up. And this was exactly my thoughts on it, but people smarter and more into this than me will say it. Where's the quote here? He's been quite active here. Very crude math. Oh yeah, a source. Quote: "The economics of this Rogers deal make no sense in the current media world. There is no way they can recoup their costs unless they are reselling significant portions of the game." All caps, none. Now, I do believe we'll probably get the Monday games going to Amazon.
Yeah, I would assume that's already locked in and they're going to get $1 billion from that or something. You know what I mean? Like, or more than that.
Yeah, a piece of whatever that is. I have no idea whether they would entertain or engage giving Wednesday nights or something like that to TSN. Probably not. And then I think the Jets, Sens, and Habs regional deals go until the end of next season. I think they've been going on 5-year deals. But if it weren't for TSN having signed that deal, that 20-year deal for the local Leafs rights, I would truly wonder whether TSN exists in 4 or 5 years. I mean, just because we've seen what Bell's doing. I mean, they've never really seemed to be interested in propping that up. I mean, I don't need to tell you about the cuts.
I mean, we've both been suckers of it. Yeah,
quite familiar with it. But you know, while they're making billions of dollars and doing all this, I mean, this isn't about, you know, crapping on the companies. I guess everyone can do what they want to do, but it didn't seem like this was a priority. In fact, it looked like they were potentially getting out of media and really focusing on what their core business is. So everything up in the air right now, other than the fact that at least we know that they're going to be in it, and the Leafs being the crown jewel of that whole thing for the next 20 years. So, you know, do they stay competitive and still work on the Ottawa and Montreal and Winnipeg markets? Because I guess out west, it's all Sportsnet.
Yeah, like I was just going to say, Huss, I haven't watched a TSN hockey game in over 10 years. Like we get the Oilers are on Sportsnet. All the TSN regional games are blacked out here, right? So I don't really, sounds bad to say it when I work for the company calling football, but we don't get that out here. So I don't really have a chance to watch it much. You guys have Jets regional. So,
yes.
I mean, that's all done in Winnipeg though, right? Like panel, like they don't throw it back to like a studio panel in Toronto or anything of those games.
No. They only do that for Leaf games. I mean,
okay. Yeah.
They and I think maybe the Habs, they might, but I don't know. It seems like the Jets and the Sens like often are sort of the, you know, like, listen, I get it. There's smaller markets, the viewership's smaller. But I mean, like, they've at least started doing a 30-minute pregame, and, you know, having Sarah back involved in the TSN fold, albeit kind of a combination gig between the Jets and her.
Yeah, but anytime you can have Moraleski around, it's a win. I mean,
well, absolutely. And the other thing, I mean, you know, then in the intermission, they cut back to, you know, Frankie Corrado or Button or Carlo Koliakovo or whoever, in usually just at home watching the game, giving their insight and thoughts. And then, the second, and I'm talking the second the final buzzer goes, boom, they're out, they're back to SportsCenter.
Yeah.
Now, again, they'll focus in our market. They'll get to the Jets stuff. When the Jets audio and stuff comes in, they will get it. But there's no real post game of any type other than going straight to SportsCenter. But just the landscape of this business is so wild right now, and this kind of flies in the face of everything.
That's what I was everything we're talking about, everything we're seeing in Canadian media and the way that sports media is in this country. Like when you see that, I'm looking at that Jonah tweet right now. It says the economics of this Rogers deal make no sense in the current media world. There's no way they can recoup their costs. So obviously they thought it's so important to keep it away from TSN that they have to do what they have to do to get it. And then they'll go from there. But what I find interesting is that I would assume the NHL would have had some conversations with Amazon. What's the deal just look like with you guys? What's that like? Do you not think the NHL could have brought 3 or even maybe 4 parties together and got this number above 11 billion? Or is it just straight up, no matter what we put into it and who we bring together, we're never going to top 11 billion. So let's take the 11 billion from Rogers and let them sort it out.
Yeah. Gary's a pretty smart guy. I'm pretty sure that they've got a pretty good pulse on everything. And, there's a premium for Rogers paying what they paid to control it all. And make all those decisions, and they're going to get to do that. So, yeah, it's funny how different it is for you guys out west, because Rogers really does pretty much own the sports landscape outside of the CFL. And obviously, I guess there's some NBA, and if the Raptors are good, that's always been split. But strictly for hockey, and conversely, a lot of times it seems like Sportsnet just doesn't even pay attention to Winnipeg. We'll be on a few games at times, but for the same reason why all those guys on the Sportsnet panel were nearly unanimous in saying the Jets weren't going to make the playoffs. The team was sort of an afterthought. I don't really think they pay very much attention to it. But Canucks, Oilers, Calgary, that already was Rogers and Sportsnet country. The Toronto market's completely split, but those other Canadian teams have been TSN, and how that works out moving forward, I'm going to be fascinated to see. Like, does it incentivize TSN more to make sure that they keep the local rights? Or do they say, this is costing us a lot of money, we've already divested ourselves of a bunch of our sports properties? Do they keep going in that direction? I really don't know. But tell you what, it's going to be an interesting sports landscape after the bombshell that was dropped yesterday.
All right, it's an interesting night in the National Hockey League as well. We'll talk a little bit more about that deal on Two Guys and Goalie coming up, and I know Huss will talk about it more on Winnipeg Sports Talk a little bit later on today. We got pretty busy night in the NHL. What am I counting? Am I counting a dozen games? Looks like a dozen games tonight. Let's start here. Washington and the Boston Bruins. Charlie Lindgren and Jeremy Swayman confirmed to go in that one. Alexander Ovechkin, we were talking about earlier, right off the top before Huss joined us. Plus 105 tonight to score. He's got 9 games left. He needs 5 goals. So could be something you might be looking at tonight. Columbus Blue Jackets, Merzlikins will go for the Blue Jackets. UC Saros unconfirmed for the Preds. Olmark will start for the Sens. James Reimer will go for the Buffalo Sabres. Montembeault already confirmed to start for the Habs. Vanacek likely to go for the Florida Panthers there. Sorokin will go for the Islanders. Vasilevsky for the Lightning. Jordan Binnington for the Blues. Cam Talbot for the Red Wings. Vamelka and Dustin Wolf in that Calgary-Utah game. And then unconfirmed, Gibson and Georgiev, San Jose and Anaheim, a game that nobody will care about. Pickard will go for the Oilers. Vegas Golden Knights, Aiden Hills listed as unconfirmed right now. And then big one tonight, Winnipeg and the Kings have to think it would be Helly and Kemper there. Quick note, this was texted in from Rod Z. The St. Louis Blues are 15-2-2 since Jobu the bobblehead appeared in their locker room. Jobu from Major League. He's in their locker room, and they're 15-2-2 since unleashing Jobu, which doesn't surprise me at all in any way, Huss.
I may have to talk to my friends at the Jets game production department and plans some sort of an exorcism of Joe Boo for next
Joe Boo.
Monday's game against the St. Louis Blues.
Screw you, Joe Boo. I'll do it myself.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, listen, just before we make these picks, you mentioned Ovi right off the bat.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the specials that they have. So you can bet who's going to get an assist on Ovi's record. There is it's minus 161 that he gets the record this year. It's plus 130 that he doesn't. But we still have, I just like keep going back to what team will he do it against and just see how the odds have changed. Because you recall, we got on Columbus at 5-1. That number is now in half at plus 250. They're the most likely team for him to score those goals against. Islanders 5-1. Probably the best story would be Pittsburgh.
Yeah, what's the Pittsburgh number? 6-1?
It's 6-1, and that's the final game of the regular season. Like, you imagine if he did it, game 82 against Crosby and the Penguins, and their last game of the year.
It's the way it should go.
If you believe in the script, folks, you might want to put a little sprinkle down on Pittsburgh at 6-1. Thing with Columbus is they do have back-to-back games, and just on Ovi for a minute, let's just pull this up. They got the Bruins tonight, but the remainder of their schedule looks like this. They've got Boston tonight, Carolina on Wednesday, so back-to-back games. They go Friday at home to Chicago. That might be we might be hitting the over 1.5 in that game on Ovi, I have a feeling. At the Islanders, at Carolina. So, if he can get 2 or 3 goals over these next 5 games, then Saturday and Sunday, April 12th and 13th, a home and home with Columbus. 2 games back-to-back, game numbers 79 and 80 of the regular season. So if he doesn't get it, then you got the Islanders on April 15th, and then, as I mentioned, Thursday, April 17th, the final day of the regular season, Caps at Pittsburgh. And I'm financially invested in the Columbus game, so let's see Ovi break it then. But if not, I can't think of a better way to finish up the regular season and go into the playoffs than that much hype for a game that, frankly, would normally mean absolutely nothing.
Yeah, that'd be good. All right, Huss, what do we, tons to look at tonight. Where do we start? What do we do here?
Let's get these games up. How about Calgary last night?
I know.
Like, I know everyone in Edmonton is born to hate Calgary, and full disclosure, even though the Edmonton Oilers ruined my childhood, I hated the Flames more than the Oilers, really dating back to Jamie McCowan's cross-check on Dale Howardchuk that took him out of the playoffs that year. I digress. I can't tell you how impressed I am with this Flames team. Like,
I will say this quick.
They have no business being where they are right now. They have no business at all being in this situation. And they just don't quit. And they score 2 in the third in Colorado and come back and win in the shootout. Listen, they're not going to make the playoffs, but I just have to tip my cap to a team that simply will not quit, has not quit all season long, and has exceeded, I think, everybody's expectations. And even now, when you look at the standings, you look at the schedule going, this is impossible, they're not hearing any of it. So pretty impressive stuff from the Flames. And they're plus 155 tonight against Utah. And after what they did last night, I almost don't care that they're on back-to-back.
But they'll have Dustin Wolf going tonight, too.
Oh, of course. That was Darth Vader yesterday.
Yeah. So, I got time for them. I'd even throw a dog like that into a parlay right now with the way the Flames are going. And as Rod Z points out, he goes, Utah has lost each of its last 7 games following a road win. Calgary's a live dog tonight. I'm Adam Parlay and Flames money line. So, I'm okay with that. I was just going to say, and I don't want to name names because it is Edmonton here and it's blasphemous, but I have seen people text in and I have seen people in the chats being like, since the Flames got rid of Tkachuk, I don't mind watching them and seeing what they're doing. And You know, like I think the level of hate, I guess I'd say, has been dialed back a little bit until they play each other in a playoff series, obviously.
Well, I mean, until they get really good. Like, I can tell you that if they were, I mean, like the Battle of Alberta still had a bit of juice on the weekend. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, a little bit.
But this is the thing. The Oilers went to Game 7 of the Cup final last year, and the Flames have gone through seasons where they lost Johnny Gaudreau, they lost Matthew Tkachuk. I mean, they've sort of been going. So they're in such, at least perceived to be such different neighborhoods that it's easy to have a bit more of a soft spot for someone that you was a hated rival when you've got McDavid and Draisaitl going to the playoffs, and they're probably not. But yeah, I mean, listen, if you rule out all personal biases, I don't know how you can be anything but really impressed with what Calgary's done so far, and the fact that they're still finding a way to hang around in this thing. One team I'm not betting tonight, I'll tell you, is the Ottawa Senators. And not because I don't think they're good. They can't beat Buffalo. They've lost their last 3 games to the Buffalo Sabres, burning one partner parlay I can remember in the midst. So Ottawa, absolute no-go today against they beat the Leafs every time they play them, and they lose to the Sabres. Make it make sense. But that's one that I'm out on. Now, we've got Florida in Montreal. Montreal just beat Florida. Florida's 3 back of the Leafs. The Habs can't sweep a back-to-back against the Panthers, can they?
I don't see a world where that exists. I don't see that happening.
I don't. So Florida's a possibility. And then, I mean, I don't know, is the St. Louis Blues just free money?
Well, I saw Jake over in the chat being like, I think I'm going to fade the Blues tonight because they can't win forever. But, I mean, they kind of have been. And Joe Boo is still kicking around. I mean, Detroit's getting to pretty much got to have a territory here.
Washington's minus 222 in Boston. I mean, this is a game where maybe you go puck line on it, but the Caps, I think that's just a stay away. I
do like Florida. I think Florida's a good play.
If we put St. Louis in, Calgary, Florida, St. Louis is plus 549 before the boost.
Because that Calgary number is so juicy, eh?
Yeah, exactly. Plus
staying away from the Sharks and Ducks. I mean, is that the rare game that the Sharks might be able to win? Anaheim's had a decent little vibe going. I mean, I'd rather have Florida and St. Louis on the card anyway. And Calgary does get us to a pretty good number.
Yeah, I mean, if we're starting with Calgary and we're looking for a couple games that we think quite confidently we can win, and it's basically going to come down to whether the Flames can pull out a W as a plus 155 underdog. I mean, I feel good about that. I mean, I guess the other game that if you wanted to jump on the Lightning at minus 167, but comparing that to those other two on the road against the Islanders, and if I'm not mistaken, they just beat the Islanders at home in their last game. So this is sort of a home and home as well. I think we take the other side with the Panthers and as I say, the Blues until further notice. I mean, I don't know how you can go against them. They're running. They know that they can make it into they'll be a point up on Minnesota.
Yeah.
If they get this win tonight. Thanks to, are they even in games now? NHL. St. Louis and Minnesota. Yeah, they're even in games right now. So St. Louis is only 1 point back. So they're jumping. Minnesota would obviously have another game to play. But I'm sure St. Louis realizes the benefit of getting the first wild card and moving over and go through the Pacific, as opposed to having to deal with Dallas, Colorado, Winnipeg in the Central Division. So, and I guess let's talk about who they're playing too. Detroit. I mean, Detroit's 4-6 in their last 10. They've had so many opportunities to get back into the mix, and they just, I mean, they're somewhat there. They're only 3 points back of Montreal, but when you compare what St. Louis has been doing and what Detroit's been doing, I mean, it's a total no contest.
Yeah, it's not even close. Rod Z is on the Ducks puck line, Calgary, Edmonton, and the Jets plus 2650. Ooh.
Say that. Okay, hold on a sec. Say that again.
Ducks puck line.
Yeah.
Calgary, Edmonton, and the Jets money line.
Wow. I'll have to take that. We'll tee up this Oiler game tonight for us.
Yeah, I mean, no idea really. I mean, it comes down to Draisaitl can carry them to a win, I think. I don't know if they're going to be able to slow down a Vegas team that won't have Thomas Hertl. But the season that Jack Eichel is having, buddy, I did not realize how impressive a season he had till I kind of dove into it a little bit today. And we talked about it with Button. Like, I mean, I don't know why. I guess because he's a few points back of those other top end guys, but he should be top 5 in Hart Trophy voting when it's all said and done. He's like plus 36. He's got the career high 93 points. He'll be a 100-point guy on a team that's first place in the division. And he's got 27 more points than anybody else on that team. Like, he's having just a monstrous season that I think is sort of flying under the radar a little bit because Helly's so good and Draisaitl's so good. And then you always got Kucherov and McKinnon. But, I mean, Eichel has been kind of not Mr. Everything for Vegas, but I don't want to say tonight's game just comes down to Leon versus Eichel, but it might. I mean, it might come down to those two guys.
Yeah. The Eichel Hart talk is interesting. I mean, I'm pretty sure we know who the 3 finalists are going to be: McKinnon, Draisaitl, Hellebuck. But on the periphery of that spot in third place is Cooch, is Jack Eichel. And then, I heard Elliot Friedman talking about this. I don't know how you overlook Werenski and Quinn Hughes if we're talking about most valuable player and most valuable player to their team. I don't think that those guys are going to get into the mix. But, I mean, if Vancouver made the playoffs, there would have been some big-time support for Quinn Hughes. When you think about what's happened around him this year, and the analytics, the numbers of what the Canucks do when he's on the ice as opposed to off the ice is as lopsided as anything you've ever seen. And then, I mean, the season Werenski's had with the Blue Jackets that everyone thought would be completely out of rings. What do we have here? This is so. Hey, are we good on this parlay?
Good on the parlay. Yeah, Jake, Pat, whoever's watching. Florida money line, St. Louis money line, Calgary money line, plus 549 pre-boost. You'll be able to find that in the combo cards at the top of the page. EST parlay is on the exclusives page over on the left side.
I'm just getting back up, and shout out to Evdog and the guys. Once we got these make the playoffs odds, they've just been updated every day. They've been there. I love going back and forth and kind of looking, because I think this tells you a lot more than any sort of poll or people's takes. I mean, I always say follow the money with these things, and that's why Hart Trophy, flip a coin between Hellebuck and Draisaitl. They're both minus 105 right now if you want to get on that. But this basically tells us that the West is, for all intents and purposes, done. Minnesota minus 1667 to make the playoffs. St. Louis minus 455. The Flames did keep their hopes alive. They're plus 250. They need the Blues to lose some games. And, there'll be big Detroit fans tonight for sure. Calgary's taking on. The Canucks are now at 8-1. But in the East, this is where it is really, really interesting and frankly, really close. So the Habs have the spot right now. They're plus 170. The Rangers are 2-1, plus 200. Columbus Blue Jackets plus 350. Islanders plus 725. And the Detroit Red Wings 10-1. Now that's going to incorporate strength of schedule in a big way, who they're playing, who their opponents are playing right now. But as opposed to the West, that's basically done. I mean, there are so many different things that can happen over the course. Kind of what we were talking about in the NBA with both conferences and so much still to be determined. This race, I mean, you almost have to basically break down these schedules, handicap it, decide where you're thinking about games, and add it up to see where it goes. But Habs would be fun to get in. A Washington-Montreal series would be pretty good. Washington-Rangers, I think, actually might be the best hockey series, although you never know what you're getting out of it. And then, the Blue Jackets would be the best story, I think as well. Who are you riding with right now? If you had to throw a nickel down on one of these teams to make it, almost regardless of odds, you're not looking for value, but just this is who's going to make it. Where are you going?
I still kind of just feel the Rangers find a way to squeak in. They've got, it's a chance here for them to eliminate what was an absolutely disastrous regular season and give themselves a little bit of hope and a little bit of a shot. So I still, I grew up a Habs fan, would like to see the Habs in the playoffs, but I just have always sort of thought along the way when it's been tight for the last month that the Rangers would be the one that emerged from that group.
Here's what they've got. They've got 8 games left. And they've been off since Saturday in that 6-1 win against San Jose. They had that West Coast trip, a few days to get back at it. They've got the Wild tomorrow night at home. They're at New Jersey on Saturday, home to Tampa next Monday, home to Philly on the 9th, back-to-back in New York against the Islanders the next night, then at Carolina, at Florida, home to Tampa Bay. So it is not, they have, if you want to talk about playoff teams right now, they are 6 of their final 8 games are against teams that are currently in the playoffs. So it is not an easy schedule at all for the New York Rangers.
Over Timmy Tushu in the chat says Bobby Witt Jr. home run, Machado home run, Ovi and Draisaitl goals plus 86-26. If you want a little cross sport dinger and goal parlay. Winnipeg Sports Talk coming up. Obviously, you guys got a ton to set up here in a monster game tonight for both your city and our city watching on as you play the Kings.
Yeah, we're definitely going to try and do the Oilers a favor tonight. They got to find a way to beat the Kings this year and, just keep on stacking points to extend the lead with ahead of the Dallas Stars, who just don't lose. So we will hit that tonight and everything else in the NHL with Dennis Bernstein. Jeff Hamilton's going to be jumping on with us. Moose are starting their final homestand of the year. We'll check in on them with some injury updates of guys that could be potential call-ups. And of course, we'll dive into the Coolbet lines as we do each and every show over on Winnipeg Sports Talk. So it should be a heck of a lot of fun. Enjoy the games tonight, everybody, and let's get back in the win column with that partner parlay. Things you don't often hear in Edmonton and Winnipeg is go Flames.
All right, that's going to do it for the Lock Shop. We got 2 guys and a goalie coming up here at noon for Huss. I am Dusty. Thank you very much for joining us today. Best of luck tonight, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.